Thank you very much, Ed, for bringing us along, and definitely some very interesting things we saw earlier. I will say, now that I know we have some attendees in much far-reaching solutions, and as far as Germany, I've actually been thinking about how to broaden sort of my context so that everybody, I know that everybody's on the same page. So I might be winging a little bit of this at the beginning, just so folks who have stayed up late, stuck around late in Germany, and even, who don't represent potential partners, but at least can, get something from this presentation. So with that, my name is Jeremy, and we're with Sepialine. Kim is here with me, and we're going to talk about our product PrinterPoint today. And, for a lot of folks, they understand, exactly what it is we do, but for others, just so you know, you're probably used to the in-house shop printing focus of this organization. But many of these reprographers, many of these, print solution providers place printers out at customer sites, right? They're part of sort of printer equipment distribution. And, that's become very, very popular. And, it's pushing that print volume out to smaller and smaller printers and smaller runs at a variety of different companies, whether that's, originally at architects, and now you're all the way down into plumbers and painters who have very small printers. And we make a piece of software, that is cloud-based, and it helps these equipment dealers handle the workload of managing these huge fleets of remote printers, right? And they do get quite large, so basically, contractually speaking, when they place these printers, they're assuming the responsibility on behalf of their customer to keep these printers running, right? That whether that be from service and downtime interruptions, but also proactively providing supplies like ink and toner and media to make sure that when this customer wants to make a print, there's nothing to do but hit the print button. And then furthermore, because of this service they're providing, obviously they need to track the usage and send a bill, because most of these placements are put there on a cost per usage basis, right? So, for again, those folks who aren't in this world, we soak in it all day. I think probably several of us on here know it all too well after 2 decades. We refer to this as MPS, and frankly, PrinterPoint does better MPS automation, because as they get larger and larger fleets, maintaining that service level becomes sort of overwhelming, right? And so we're going to go into what are the things that we can do to automate those daily tasks, to automate those responsibilities that you've assumed when you sign these contracts. Let's see, click. Right. So again, a print provider places printers all over the city, all over the state, all over the country. I saw a couple ARC folks on here. You're obviously a huge placer of printers. You get the picture. And what we want to do is bring modern processes and team collaboration to this. And let me kind of stop here if that sounds a little heady. But what we see is, somebody getting into this business and then sort of handing these daily tasks to somebody who does it with spreadsheets, who does it with emails, who waits to hear from this customer that they need supplies, right? It's all very reactive. And as it grows and grows and grows, it becomes untenable. And so what we're trying to convince folks of is, believe it or not, you already have other systems in your company that work very, very well, like AR, like help desk, where it's clear what an employee or a staff member needs to be doing, whether that's calling this customer for a particular invoice that's outstanding or closing this case at a customer site that's clearly outstanding. But the idea is you're sharing a single list. If you close a case, it closes for everybody. If you accept a check, you're accepting that check on behalf of everybody at your company. You're not emailing each other to stay in line. So we're trying to bring some of that to this process, which we do not see very well. And the key to this is really lists. I mean, it's a concept that's been around for eons, and yet somehow, some way, each time somebody grows their business in a new direction, they sort of fail to encapsulate what's required in a list. And they tend to, unfortunately, put it on somebody's desk, and that person goes nuts for 3 to 4 years as it grows and the weight gets heavier. So, what we're trying to do is present these staff members with a list, whether that's supply orders, whether that's service alerts, whether that's invoices, present that to them with some human approval, and away they go. And, I should stop here real quickly and interject that we saw a huge uptick during COVID for this, because one of the things we've always talked about that unfortunately we didn't, actually think it would happen this much, is the reality that by placing those daily tasks with a single staff member, it's a huge liability. That person has basically created their own process and fights their way through every month. We actually have a joke that they're usually pretty grumpy folks at that company, to be honest with you, because they've been left alone to fight the storm surge of tasks. And nobody realizes that if they're not there, they don't even know what they're doing. I mean, imagine if you had no AR list, that somebody in accounting just sort of kept a spreadsheet or kept a bunch of emails in an inbox, or if in your support department, you didn't have a help desk. You just had a bunch of people with a bunch of emails and inboxes, and then you always talk to each other. If they'd start to disappear, it's a real huge liability. So during COVID, we saw an incredible sort of aha moment across our prospects and even our customer base as to how important it is to make this human understanding of it. So everybody in the staff, everybody in the management knows what needs to be done for every printer. So let's take a look just real briefly at something like supplies. We basically monitor these remote printers, and if we notice that one of these printers is reporting it's low on ink or toner or even paper, we report back as into a pending order that somebody can simply review and approve. And without going too much into the details here, this may seem simple enough, but actually when you get into folks' business processes, as with anything, there's quite a bit of logic involved here. And the idea is that, we can actually do on-site inventory at the customer. We know they have 3 cartridges. When they get down to 1 cartridge, we want to send them 2. So this isn't as simple as, oh, they're down to 5%, let's send them ink, right? This is actually highly complex. Anything that this staff member might have learned over the years, that they're using their brain as the business computer in determining when to send things, we've actually encapsulated all that, right? We get it. It actually does take quite a bit of sort of, one-off understanding to really get the customers right. And we actually do paper too. We know when they've been printing on bond or whether it's photo paper. We know all of that. We actually know it's 36 inches wide, and we know you recently sent them 4 rolls of 500-foot paper, and that you're down to 250 feet of that out of the original 2,000 linear feet, and it's time to send them some more. So it's quite advanced, and simply hitting the approve button. And I think it's funny. It's funny how much focus we put on that button. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but if you think about it, imagine if somebody in AR got a check but didn't hit the accept check button, or if somebody who worked all day in support didn't always hit the close button. That little button that I think people overlook, that doesn't seem that important. It's everything. it's everything when you're working with a team. It's everything if you want to scale from 1 employee to 2 to 3. It's everything. If somebody wants to take a vacation and you want to show somebody else how to do it, hit the approve button, just like hit the close case button, just like accept the check button. And so we put a lot of emphasis on that, so that, these tasks, which, have been sort of encapsulated in one staff member's mind and are highly complicated, become very simple, right? Now, obviously these orders come in and they can be completely integrated with any system. We've got a really robust API. Gives us all kinds of options depending on how folks want to work. So no more group emails, no more phone calls, no more Post-it notes, just review, approve, and done. And to be honest with you, some people don't even review. If they're doing thousands of orders in a day, they just have the thing automated, but in an effort to keep it simple. So obviously it's the same with billing. If you think about any task in your company, and even if you are not, a good prospect for this, if you're not in the MPS, printer placement, I think there's definitely something to be learned here, which is really simple, and it's kind of all around you. And it's the idea that, gathering data remotely was neat, 5-10 years ago. And people thought that's sort of the backbone of how these things happen. But really, it's what are your employees, putting their minds to? What decisions are your employees making, right? And building out lists. Even if you're the CEO, everybody wants to work on lists, whether you've gotten hooked on Trello or Basecamp or anything else. The reality is, the future is sort of lists of tasks with a layer of business logic overlaid to help you make those decisions quickly, right? So the billing is really the same. We're going to watch the usage of these printers. We are going to send it back to PrinterPoint. We know when the billing date is. We know exactly which meters you're billing on. Sometimes that's by square feet, sometimes by square meters, sometimes by, highly complex and variable costing measures as to how much ink per square inch is on a piece of paper, because that can have a huge effect on the cost of that print to you. So you need to also vary the charge. But we take care of all that. These are all things that people used to have a spreadsheet and go find the meter on a certain day and know which meter they need to get and remember what the last meter was. It shouldn't be that way. So this can help really make this simple, and those folks can go on vacation. And frankly, somebody, dare I say, up the ladder can take care of it. And we all know as you go up the ladder, you somehow lose skill levels as to your day-to-day task abilities. I know certainly that I can't seem to mail things. We calculate all that usage, and we know exactly which SKU that represents in your accounting package. And we'll go ahead and, either you can 10 key or you can integrate with it. And, it does it for you, helping you to scale this side of your business. Let's see, something we're going to approve. And again, all of these bills can be integrated with external systems, so we can automatically create these invoices for you. So again, it's kind of a theme here. No more group emails, no more phone calls, no more Post-it notes. Obviously, I think we're all, coming around to the reality that, why Slack, this company, was just bought for $28 billion. The workflow based on emails and is just sort of coming to an end. There's got to be shared lists. There's got to be, a collaborative aspect to just about even the most sort of mundane day-to-day tasks. And so obviously, I think you can probably see where this story is going. And the idea is PrinterPoint can monitor these printers. We can pick up all of the errors and alerts, and we can notify somebody back at your office. We can even create cases automatically based on your settings. And of course, you can dispatch somebody to fix it. And this again is all available via the API and integration options. So that is a quick context. I actually do want to show the product just a little bit, just to kind of give folks an idea of some of the complexities, which, typically you avoid sort of deep details in here. But I think it's actually quite interesting to see where something that starts so simple, hey, we'll place a printer here and we'll, make sure it's running, and we'll offer ink and paper replenishment. You look up 5 years later and you've got 400 or 500 printers, and every one of them's a little different, and just sort of how unwieldy it can be. So, in the next part, when I share my screen and it becomes a little technical, that's the point. I think that is exactly my point. So bear with me here. Can folks now see the other tab in my browser, Ed?
Yes, we can.
Great. So this is a typical PrinterPoint account, and you can see that you would have your customer sites out here to the left, and under each customer site would be the printers that you've placed there. And each of these printers is, reporting back, and is reporting back every 5 minutes. And under each printer, we can see things like its service alerts, its ink and paper usage, and its meters, right? And, the idea is, I think, if you think about this in a broad context, what I'm showing you probably was pretty great 5-10 years ago when people just say, hey, can you get me the data? But you still had this employee who knew to go to Alphabet Engineering's on a certain day, knew to go to the HP 8000 and had to go check things. But these portals, if you will, I can go look at a portal. Jill just goes and looks at a portal. that's really not a workflow. That's really not making Jill's role, as somebody in charge of an MPS program, repeatable, scalable, teachable, right? You really need to understand what, this person does every day and encapsulate it into a to-do list. And so, rather than kind of view information like this as interesting, I think back in the day, if you showed somebody, oh, I can show you what the supply levels are of this printer remotely, I can show you the usage, they go, great. It's really not enough anymore. And so I think across the top, you'll notice our workflows, and there are things like pending orders. So for instance, in this scenario, Alphabet Engineering has a printer, and it has in the machine, there's 100% brand new roll. There's a 24-inch by 500. But as you can see here, there's 2 remaining. They reorder at 3, so they're below the threshold, and we're going to send them 2. So again, these are the decisions that people have learned along the way, but we want to make sure that those people unfortunately can come and go and take vacation. The same can be here. They actually have, in this scenario, this order, they have 60% of their cartridge in the machine, but they also have 1 on the shelf, and we're sending them 2, right? So we're trying to make as many decisions as possible for these folks. Now, one thing I want to say that's also, again, one of these complexities that for folks in this world, we'll actually love to hear, and for folks who aren't in this world are going to go, wow, I didn't think it was so complicated, is this idea that, when you put a printer out there, your contract is in a lot of ways, it's like bringing a baby into the world. And between your customers and yourself, you're deciding whose responsibility is for it, right? Like who's taking it to the doctor, i.e. who's in charge of service, who's going to feed and care for the thing, i.e. who's going to put paper and ink in there, and so on and so forth. And what's interesting is, these contracts end up on a wide, scale of who's in charge of what. So, you'll notice that what we do is on these green orders, these are what most folks call, MPS or all-inclusive contracts. And so you can proactively send these inks and papers at no cost to the customer, because they tend to pay for those on a per square foot basis. Therefore, we find tons of folks who say, yeah, but I've sold printers outright, lots and lots of printers outright. I can't really proactively send them $300 worth of supplies. I need to get their approval. Right, exactly. These are exactly the complexities, exactly the anomalies that that we understand and are willing to learn to make sure we can continue to encapsulate it on a simple to-do list. And so the way we do that is, if you think about it, if somebody did not agree to you caring for this printer with ink and paper, they said, well, we'll do it ourselves. We still want to drive them back to you to buy that ink, right? I mean, I think we all know Amazon and Staples, you're not going to beat them. If somebody gets online, your name's not going to come up to where to buy ink. Just the reality of it, right? So what we want to do is say, well, instead of my to-do list, let's send that customer an email. So if their cartridges go low, they'll receive an email, branded, of course, driving them back to you. And just by hitting order now, you now have a task. And that's why these orders are the blue orders. The blue orders are requested by folks, right? But the idea is they're not different. This isn't some huge, complicated, logic tree that an employee has to remember. Do what's on the list, right? It's sort of, just like AR. The thing knows if it's net 15, it knows if it's net 30, it knows if it's net 90, right? Somebody doesn't have to go and constantly be nursing these transactions through, right? We're going to show them everything they could need to know, everything they could possibly need to know before they hit the approve button, and we re-up, those supplies. So, and the same is true, just, and again, very quickly, for billing. These are pending invoices, and we've done all the work, right? We know what the monthly base is. We know how you bill for it. We can even, do some fairly sophisticated math to meet with, contracts that include, base levels of square footage. Anything we can do so that this job becomes a series of tasks that almost anybody can complete. We joke during a lot of our demos that our goal is to be able to have the president of the company's daughter run this whole department while she plays Candy Crush on summer break, right? This shouldn't be something that has, 10 years of experience. I think, and lastly, and I think, we can definitely kind of open it up to see if folks have questions, but, one of the, comparisons we make a lot to is a fast food restaurant cash register, right? At the end of the day, this used to be something that you were good at. You were, carbon copies and putting, the order across the counter to the chefs. And now it's as simple as, a picture of a hamburger and a picture of French fries. And frankly, you don't even have to speak the language to take orders and do a good job, right? And again, it's not to trivialize or minimize folks. They have other things to do. And as this grows, it simply can't scale. And so we really look to that model of, like a fast food restaurant, like how can somebody, again, even if the president has to run it while somebody's on vacation, how can anybody show up and do this job with a really, very little understanding, come in and understand what needs to be done. And I think you look to existing successful processes in your business, like your AR, like your help desk, other things that are shared in real-time lists. So wrapped up a little early there, but gave us a little time for some questions, Ed, if there are any.
Well, thank you very much, Jeremy. I appreciate your presentation. Attendees, if you have any questions, please do fire away. No questions have come in, but let me ask a little bit. How many installations of Printer Point do you have? Do you have any idea on that?
Sure. There's, we look at them as dealers, right? And each dealer will have, many placements, right? The customer list you saw in there, right? So we have several hundred dealers and tens of thousands of, printers, right? Or tens of thousands of customers, depending upon the average printer at a customer, which has been a really interesting thing to see. I think, historically, when this started, reprographers viewed these printer placements as extensions of their shop. And due to the technology, and sorry for the long answer, but what you tended to see was initially bigger printers go out. So architects, engineers, almost like miniature repro shops. But as time goes on, what we're seeing, as I mentioned in the beginning, is more and more and more distribution, pushing it further and further into the market with smaller printers. And so you're getting more and more and more customers with smaller printers rather than fewer customers with more printers, if that makes sense.
Interesting. All right. Great. Well, Jeremy, thank you very much again for your presentation.